Hello, so today I'm going to do a little exercise with you where you're going to make a pretty picture using Excel. And so to do that, basically I'd like every cell to be a function, the color of the cell to be determined by its position on the page. And so to do that, I'm going to set up some coordinates. So I'm going to place 1, 2, 3 and 4 across the top, and then 2, 3 and 4 along the bottom. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy replicate them out to about 50. Actually, I'm going to go up to 100. There we go. 100 on there, and then on the bottom we can go down to about 100 as well. So I'm copy replicating. The way that I'm doing that is I'm grabbing hold of the black arrow on the right hand side there, and I'm just dragging it down, and that basically copies out the series. I also think that the cells are a bit wide, so I want to make the cells nice and small, so I'm just going to double click or drag it out, and it'll make the cell the size that it needs to be. And I clicked on the corner to select all the cells there, so I clicked there. Okay, so what I'd like to do is I'd like each cell to be the multiplication of the two cells of its coordinates. So here I'd like this to be 2 times 2, I'd like this to be 3 times 2, which is 6, 4 times 2, which is 8. Equally below, I'd like that to be 3 times 2, which is 6. I'd like this here to be 3 times 3, which is 9. So effectively it's like the times table, but it's going to take a long time if I do it manually, and so I would like to copy replicate the series out. The way that I do that is I'm going to pop in a formula. I'm going to do, this one here is going to be A2 times by B2, and hopefully when I drag it out, it will mean that all the correct formula copy and paste in. So I'm just going to try that and drag it out a little bit, and you'll see that very quickly we've got some really big numbers. In fact, some numbers are so big they can't even be displayed. And the reason for that is because it's not keeping the cell reference exactly where I want it, it's dragging it down. The cell references here are relative cell references. They're moving relative to where the cell is dragged to, and I want this one here to stay at the top, and I want this one here to stay at the left. And so I'm going to need to edit my initial formula by adding some dollar signs to make sure things stay where I want them. So this one here, the blue one, as I drag it across, I'd like A to remain the same. So I'm going to put a dollar sign in front of the A, and that means that A will stay the same as I drag the formula across the screen. Equally, on this one here, as I drag it down, I'd like the one part of the formula to remain the same. And so, but whereas when I drag it across, I'd like the B to change. So I'd like the B to go to 2, but this bit here to stay in the top column. So I'm going to put a dollar sign on that, and then enter. And now I'm going to copy replicate that formula out and just check that it's worked okay. And you'll know it's worked a charm. So if I now look at the formulas, you see that as I drag it across, this one stays in the correct position, and this one stays in the correct position. If you want to make a cell never ever change, irrespective of where you were to move the formula to, you'd put a dollar sign in front of both parts of the coordinate. So I'm just going to copy replicate all that out, down to 100, and across all the way to some big number. Got a few more to go. Then what I'd like to do is I'd like to set the color of the cell to be based upon the number in the cell, which is actually quite easy. If you highlight all the cells and you go to data and maybe not, no, if you go to home and then you go to conditional formatting, and in here you press a color scale, and so the higher number would be, say, blue here, and the lower number would be red, or we could do red, yellow, green. And so when I set it now when I zoom out, you'll see that the color of the cell has been determined by the coordinates of that cell, which is quite interesting, because it means that what you can do here, as long as you keep these two cell references the same, you can change the actual formula that you're using, say maybe to a plus, and you'll see a different, once you copy replicate that out, you'll see that when you change the formula, it changes the actual way. So here, because I did a plus, we've now seen that the progression of color is in straight lines. What you can do for the rest of the time with this is you could experiment with different formulas and see what happens. Some of the really interesting formulas are when you add trigger trigonometric functions. So if I was to do, say for example, sine of this number, and maybe, I think that by itself should be fine, and then I was to copy replicate that out, I'm hoping that I'll get some kind of like undulating pattern, because the sine produces a sine wave. Yeah, and you can see here that the pattern is going sort of up and down as it goes along the page. So have a play, see what you can make, and see if you could make a pretty picture using some formulas in Excel.